Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get underway, there's a few administrative matters that I need to take care of. First off, I'd like to welcome everyone to our August meeting. In the event of a fire, the fire exit is located to your left. You'll be notified by an announcement. If notified, please move in a calm and orderly fashion and exit the building using either the north or the south stairs. Do not use the elevator. The meetings are being recorded by our Secretary, Michelle, for the purpose of a record, not for a verbatim transcript. When you come to the podium to help her identify who's speaking, please state your name and your address each time you come to the podium so that she knows in her notes who is saying what. We will follow the items on the agenda in the order in which they appear. There are extra copies of the agenda on the table next to the door. If you'd like to have a copy of the agenda, help yourself. When we call the case, the applicant or their representative should come to the podium, state their name, their address, raise their right hand and be sworn, and then make their presentation. Nobody else needs to be sworn, only the applicants or the representatives. During the presentation, the members of the board are free to ask questions or engage in discussion with the applicant. Once that process is completed and the applicant has stated everything they wish to state and the board has had the opportunity to interact with them, we will then open the case up for public input. There are three categories of public input. We take those who wish to speak in favor of the application first. Then we call upon those who wish to speak in opposition to the application second. And last, we take those who wish to speak to the application but aren't sure if they're for it, against it, or have no position and just want to talk about the application. Once that process has been completed, then the applicant or their representative will be given an opportunity to respond to anything that was raised during the public input portion, and we will then close the case. Moving on to the next case. Once we have closed all the cases that are on the agenda, the board will take a short break, the duration of which will be announced when we take it. And during that time, you're free to leave if you wish, or you're welcome to stay. Once we come back, we will deliberate on the cases in the order in which the applicants are still present. So if the first applicant has left and the second applicant is present, we will take the second application first, and we'll take them in order of each of the applicants that are present. Then we'll return to the top of the agenda and deal with the cases where the applicant or their representative is no longer present. There is no further input allowed during this part of our meeting. It is a deliberative session for the board, and we will make the decisions on the cases that we've heard this evening. If you wish to find out what our decision is and you don't wish to stay, you can catch it on TV at home, or you can call the town hall tomorrow morning after 9, and the Planning and Zoning Department will be glad to tell you what our decision was. Before we actually take our first case, there are two matters that we need to take up. The first is I will advise those present that the application pertaining to 2841 Culver Road has been postponed by the applicant to the September 8th Zoning Board meeting. So if you were here with respect to the application concerning the use of that property, then you need to come back on September 8th. I'm telling you that now so that you don't sit here while we take all the other cases and then wonder why yours was not being heard. Secondly, we have been asked, the town board is in the process of reviewing a proposed recreational facility located at 117 Kings Highway North, opposite the town's DPW Operations Center. As an involved and interested agency, we are being notified to concur that the town board shall act as lead agency for this project. So I would move I know that I get these letters as chair, but it's my position that I'm one of 7 on the board, and so I think that the board should take action on this. So I would move that we concur that the Arundecoyt Town Board may act as lead agency for this project. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any discussion?
I don't know anything about it, so I guess,
That makes probably 7 of us.
so, without any, knowledge of it, we just agree to it, or?
Well-
I mean, obviously, it sounds like something we would agree to anyway,
If we
but,
don't agree, we run the risk of being the lead agency.
Agency?
And then we would have to undertake the environmental assessment review and everything else that the town board is willing to do. And unless there were variances or some interaction with the zoning ordinance.
There are not.
There are none, I'm being told, we wouldn't have anything to do with what we'd be doing that work on.
and whereabouts is this again?
Somewhere on 117 Kings Highway North, across from, it says it's across, opposite the DPW Operations Center.
I'm good.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, and the board is all present, and I will sign that and forward that along. Having taken care of that, I believe we're now ready, unless somebody has anything else, to take the first case on our agenda for this evening.
First item on the agenda is case number ZB 1407-2. Upon the matter of request by Matt and Karen Robinson for area variances to install 6-foot-high front and side yard privacy fencing exceeding maximum allowable height, linear footage, and type on premises 869 Lakeshore Boulevard, otherwise known as 250 Rock Beach Road, in an R1 residential district.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We need to.
Well, first you need your name and address.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Matt Robinson.
Karen Robinson?
We're off to a rolling start here. 869 Lakeshore Boulevard, also known as 250 Rock Beach Road.
All right, now you can raise your right hands. You swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
I do.
All right. We are applying for a variance to put up a privacy fence that's going to run on the north end of our property. We submitted this proposal last month, and it was denied. Since that time,
Let me correct you about that. It wasn't denied. It was that there was no action was
Yeah, I'm
taken
sorry.
because there was not a majority of the board that
Right.
voted
Okay.
one way or the other.
And to point, this is actually a different application too. There are changes to this application. So this is not the same application that you heard
Right.
last month.
so we did change the application. What we submitted was we reduced the linear footage by approximately 20 feet on that proposal. What we have done since then, based on the advising of Mr. Lipari and speaking with Mr. Hinman, we've reduced this even more. We've taken out, if you have the PowerPoint in front of you, we've taken away that 18-foot section that runs out towards Rock Beach, and we are now going to attach the 40-foot section that runs out towards Lakeshore. We're going to attach that directly to the house, and there will be a gate. And if you're looking at the pictures, I'm going to send a couple around right now. You'll see that the outside of the fence is facing outward. We obviously would face that inward. That's just I did this in Photoshop, so I had to work with the picture that I had. But so 40 feet out towards Lake Shore, and then running 68 feet parallel to Lake Shore, and then back 52 feet. So from our original plan, we reduced the length going out towards Lake Shore by 8 feet on each side, and we've also come in an additional foot along the property line of 881 Lake Shore. So we've reduced this, the linear footage of this project now by close to 40 feet, and as far as the property itself, we've made this reduction while trying to accommodate sight lines and keeping a chance for us to maximize as much of our property as we can without being totally intrusive into the neighborhood, to make it not make it look so obtrusive to the neighborhood.
Just so, for those who are watching or can't and don't have access to the pictures, my understanding is that what you're talking about is running the fence along this. It would continue the same line as the front of the house
Yes.
towards Lake Shore.
Yes.
It would stop at a point that's approximately the same distance as other trees and growth that are along Lake Shore Boulevard in the front of houses to the east and to the west of your property, and then it would go over to the edge of the property and come back to the house.
Actually, the way it's set up right now, the line of fencing that will run parallel to Lake Shore actually sets back about 5 to 6 feet from the furthest tree back of the setback on the sidewalk.
All right, so for a car stopped at Rock Beach, looking at Lake Shore, when they look down to the right, to the east, they're not going to see the fence. They're going to see whatever is visible and not blocked by that first tree on your neighbor's property.
Right. They will see the tree on the property of 881 Lake Shore and the two pine trees that sit in front of there more than they will see our fence. Our fence will sit behind those trees, and there should be no issues as far as sight lines when you pull up to that stop sign. If you look at diagram 1, that clearly shows that fence is a good part. It basically, if you see the guide wire that comes down from the telephone pole, the fence is going to be in line with that guide wire.
And then yours is a corner lot,
Yes.
and because the longest part of the house faces Rock Beach, by definition, your front yard is regarded as being the Lake Shore portion of your property,
That is correct.
which, as you look at your house and as your house is laid out and you could use, would be your side and a part of your backyard, if you were on a Rock Beach address. And what would be the rear yard, because of the construction of the garage to the south and the driveway, is taken up by the driveway and the garage, and so you really have no rear yard as it's defined by the town.
Right.
So if the fence runs along the house, it would encompass what is actually in use, your side and rear yard, leaving your front and a portion of the side yard open on Rock Beach and Lake Shore. Is that right?
That is correct. The town code specifies a 3-foot setback along a corner lot for fencing, and we have accommodated a 15-foot setback with these changes. So that is 5 times the required setback by the town, and we've taken that into consideration.
And the town ordinance would allow you to put up a fence that's 3.5 feet high, and you're looking for 6 feet.
Yes.
I believe that you indicated that the reason you were looking for 6 feet was because of some issues that you've had with people on your property. Can you elaborate upon that?
Yes.
Yes. We rock, paper, scissors did. I lost this one, so it's my turn to tell about the, the reasons we're requesting a fence. First and foremost, we want to provide a safe place for our children to play. We have 6- and 8-year-old daughters, and we don't allow them to play outside at all by themselves, not even for a very brief amount of time. There is a registered sex offender convicted of a crime against a 7-year-old child that lives 0.81 miles from us, and honestly, that's a concern to us. We're requesting that 6-foot fence. That's one reason, not certainly the only reason, because we don't want people to be able to see our children playing in the backyard when we're back there, whether we're with them or not. We don't want them visible to all of Lakeshore. It's a very busy road, and people from all over the county use Durand Beach during the spring and summer. It's not just our own West Arundecoit community that we deal with down there. People drive by at very high speeds. People regularly shout comments out the windows. We've had teenage babysitters and our teenage nieces have lewd comments screamed at them. We've had derogatory racial comments screamed. It's just kind of that type of area. It's everybody's headed to the beach. They're all piled in a car. They're ready to party, and they're trying to impress their friends. And it's just, I think that's, because of that area, it happens regularly, and we don't want it to be a regular part of our summer. We also have a porch in the back that's glassed in, and it's completely visible. So when we sit out there in the evening and have the light on, again, it's like we're on display for all of Lakeshore, whoever's walking on the road or driving on the road. So that's a concern for us. There's a neighbor in close proximity that has 2 very large dogs that have escaped on multiple occasions. That's a concern for us. We don't know them. I don't know if they're friendly dogs, but they're pit bulls, and so they're intimidating. But regardless of breed, when there are 2 big dogs just wandering around your neighborhood, we really prefer to have our kids behind a fence when they're playing out there. There are many intrusions on our property because it's in that very public location. Last summer, there was a man walking back from the beach, and he walked right into our backyard where I was playing with the girls and asked for a drink of water. Now, it was harmless. We gave him a drink of water, and I took the girls with me. He got his drink of water, and it was fine. But the fact of the matter is you don't know when it's not going to be harmless, and that was unnerving to me. On one occasion, we left our daughter's sprinkler out in the backyard, and in the morning when we woke, it was clear that it had been used. The ground was saturated, and the sprinkler was moved a significant way from where we had left it. We've also found a person's clothes in our side yard. I don't even want to know how those got there.
Or what they were wearing afterwards.
Most troubling from an immediate safety standpoint was we found a broken bottleneck, a clear bottleneck in the yard, and also a dime bag that appeared, to be a drug dime bag, and I assure you it was not ours. And that's a concern that people are in our yard and throwing these things in our yard. Our daughters would have been on the way to the hospital had they stepped on that bottle. On top of safety issues for our kids, we're requesting the fence just because we want a quiet, private space to enjoy spending time with our family and friends. We'd also love to have one little patch of flower garden that doesn't get eaten by the deer, which I know is a problem for a lot of people in Arundecoit. We really, really would like to plant a fruit and vegetable garden, and we've tried every year since we moved here, and the deer always beat us to the harvest. So we have not been successful in that, but that's a hope that we can do that once we get the fence. And we'd like to just close by saying that we love Arundecoit. We have wonderful friends here. We've had great experiences at the schools and in the neighborhoods, and it's an area with a lot of very natural beauty in it. We have a lot to offer people. We're hoping that this to us is a family-friendly issue, and we're hoping that we are acknowledged in that because the youth in our community and the families that are setting down roots are declining. And the Democrat and Chronicle actually had an article that in reference to Arundecoit's master plan that stated, the draft plan includes demographic survey of the town, highlighting its increasing population of retirees and still low share of young people to replace them. And part of the reason that we chose Arundecoit as a place we wanted to raise our family was because of the diversity, not just cultural diversity, but age diversity. We love that neighborhood feel when there are people of all ages connecting and just really enjoying each other. We didn't want a neighborhood where it was all brand new houses and all families with young kids. We love that age diversity in our neighborhood. But it's feeling like we're pushing some families out by being overly particular in things like that. So we're concerned about that piece. But we, as a family, are here to stay. We've already fallen in love with this beautiful little town, and we hope that you'll allow us to make our home and yard as safe and family-friendly as we can for our kids. And we do have a couple people to speak in favor, and it's not meant to be a confrontational piece. We wanted you to know, it's just because in the last meeting, we had a very negative letter from another resident of Arundecoit, and we just asked a couple friends to come and show you that there are people in Arundecoit who don't mind privacy fences going up.
Are there any questions from members of the board?
Well, I have a question, and it pertains back to our conversation about the amount of fencing and the type of fencing and the height of the fence, the length of the fence, the width of the fence. We did talk about the fact that the fence, we were to approve a fence, it should come off the front corner of the house. That's the northwest corner, and go, out. And we did also talk about it not going out as far as you wanted it to. You had brought it back from the last meeting, and I wasn't privy to the last meeting other than watching it on TV. But you're still requesting it to go out 40 feet. The other issue I have is on the scale that I have, or on the map, the fence along Lake Shore isn't parallel with Lake Shore. In the event you did do a fence, if you see how the line is drawn, the blue line is drawn on an angle, on that north side fence.
Right.
If there were to be a fence given, I would assume that it would be parallel to and not on an angle. I think,
Well, I think the angle is more in line with the way the sidewalk and the road go. It's not a deliberate angle. I was just trying to go along the same line as the sidewalk and the property line.
okay, and
So-
again, it might be the way it's mapped here,
Right,
it's not correct,
right.
but,
When it will be running parallel, there won't be any deviation from that along the Lake Shore section of fence.
obviously, we had talked about alternatives. Us three had a long conversation about alternatives in putting a hedgerow there, going with a 4-foot fence instead of a 6-foot fence, or a 3.5-foot to 4-foot fence, and putting hedgerow up there for privacy. Also bringing it back in, instead of taking it all the way out to 40 feet, taking it back in, 30 feet, 25 feet out from the house. I understand you want to utilize as much as that side yard as possible, but we also had a little bit of a conversation about your hopes eventually is putting a pool over there. And again, a pool in a side yard is probably something that would also need a variance of some sort, and it's not a common thing to have a pool in the side yard. Not that it isn't anywhere in the town, but again, right out there on Lake Shore Boulevard, safety issue and the rest of it. So my question, there's a question in there somewhere, is based on what we've just discussed, are you willing to talk to the board and compromise and come in 30 feet, 25 feet back, lower the size of the fence, bring it in at all, look at other alternatives?
Would we have to do both, bring it in and lower it?
I would think if you lowered the height and worked with some privacy shrubbery, you could keep it out there, because it is lower, it would look more proper. If you want to stay with the height, then I think it needs to be brought back in, and I think that might have been some of the board members' thoughts the last month.
I think we want to compromise, and we did make, a fairly significant adjustment so far. And yes, we would absolutely be open to discussion on it, but just, I think the reason we're concerned about that is we want the 6-foot fence for the privacy, but if we push it that far in, there really isn't room to eventually hopefully get that variance for a pool. And yet, if we go with the shorter fence and stay farther out at that 40 feet, it's cost prohibitive, because now we're paying for a fence and the shrubbery, which, possibly we could work out. But it doesn't, then we have the space for the pool, but not the privacy for it. So, yes, absolutely, we would make some adjustments if we need to. I think more likely we'd rather go with the shorter fence and more space enclosed.
More space available.
Right,
Right.
yes,
Keep it out 40 feet.
yeah.
Okay, all right, I just, again, like we talked, and I don't know what everybody's thinking tonight, but, go ahead.
I wasn't here last month either, but, the question I had was, why can't you do 3.5 feet? You recognize that a stockade fence looks a lot different than a picket fence, and that this stockade fence is going to be an eyesore for everyone driving up and down Lakeshore. So, picket fence, it's a lot easier on the eyes, with some shrubbery, will look a lot better for the neighborhood, will keep that neighborhood feeling nice and green, as opposed to a very tall fence. So, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like it would be best if you had a 6-foot fence, but it doesn't sound like a 4-foot fence or a 3.5-foot fence would be so terrible you couldn't do it. And do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, the only thing in reference to a picket fence versus the privacy fence, I believe that if they did accept a 3.5 or 4-foot size fence, they'd probably want more privacy fence as opposed to an open picket fence, which I would understand that one, and again, make a compromise, as long as everybody's in agreement. But, again, talking to you guys, keeping it open and wanting to get you the best we can to make you happy without it, changing the look. That's what my question is, and obviously you've thought about it, so.
Right. I just want to say that, and I understood what you were asking for, but, if we didn't at least attempt this, we want to at least make an attempt, and, we can always, work down from there, and so that's something that we considered when we put this proposal together. And also, the fact that our property is unique in the layout of the house, there's, because of the town code and the fact that our front yard is basically the side of our house, we wanted to maximize as much of the property that we could get out of it, so.
So I think we'd rather, if we could keep the linear footage and go at a lower height privacy fence, that would
Okay.
do.
The difference, though, between 3.5 and 6, when you're talking about people walking by and riding by, is the difference between them seeing into your backyard and them not seeing into your backyard.
Right.
Right.
And that is a
And
big concern
I understood
for us.
that was a major concern of
That
yours,
is.
was to have that privacy from the people driving and walking by.
It is.
So-
And I'm not sure how long that will take for shrubbery to give us that privacy. I don't really, I honestly don't know how many years that would be before we could accomplish that.
Well, the taller it is when you put it in, the more expensive it costs.
Well, and that's
So-
a
You're
valid concern for us.
looking at a minimum for what you want, you'd be looking at a minimum probably of having to have 6-foot arborvitae or something put in. And in order to have it fill in right, you're going to probably be putting them about every 3 feet apart. And so that's,
We did look at a property too. We looked at many properties as we were driving around, and the one that had what I believe is arborvitae, like the thin evergreen type looking trees, the deer, and we used to have one of those right at the corner of our house when we moved in, and the deer eat it, but they can only reach so high, so it's very narrow, and then it bushes out at the top and comes to a point. So it's not particularly attractive, but we'll work with it if that's our only option.
There is, other than the arborvitaes, and you're absolutely right, the deer are having a field day, it seems
Yes.
like just this year with arborvitaes, or more so. But there's another bush, and I don't know the name of it, I'm not into the different, but it does grow quite fast, and there's a few nice fences around, I mean, shrubbery fences around the town that the guys keep them groomed perfectly straight and take a lot of pains at making them look like a wall. And they do grow relatively fast. Again, I'd have to do some research to find out what they are, but it would be an alternative to the arborvitae.
Another concern that someone raised was the road spray, that being on Lake Shore as the cars go by, they said a lot of times more fragile shrubbery does not do well there just because of
Particular
that.
shrub I'm talking about
Is hardy?
grows like a weed.
Okay.
I mean, it just strong, hardy. You can actually. I had some at a house that we had on Norcrest that were 12 feet tall when we bought the house, and I totally chopped them down to the base, and within a year they were 3 feet high again. And I trimmed them nice and square and made a wall out of it, or a nice looking row out of it. But anyway,
You'll have to let us know what those are.
I don't know what they are, 'cause I just cut them, and they come
Might be a lot of people interested in those, I know, right?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'd like to make a comment on this too, and that is, first of all, I think your new plan is a lot better
Thank
than
you,
the previous one.
thank you.
I see an effort here to try to work with the zoning and make it, and looks and all that type of thing. As I drive around the town of Arundecoit, and I notice fences because they come up a lot. I don't mean they come up, I mean they're there a lot. What a lot of people have done, and I think it's something you might keep in mind, if you put a 6-foot fence up over quite a long span, you can soften that visual blow, not with necessarily a whole wall of green, but occasional spaced out trees or shrubs or whatever, just to soften it. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. I would vote for that. And the reason I would vote for it is because our primary concern here is not necessarily how it looks to people driving down Lake Shore, but your kids.
Thank you.
And I very much am in tune to what you were saying about what can happen. Even if it's not that often, it still can happen. And if I lived there, that's what I would do. I'd want a 6-foot fence too, and I'd want to soften it with some greenery, and I'd probably also put up security cameras. But that's neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. But I'm sensitive to what your needs are here, and I think just softening the look with some natural stuff would be, in my opinion, sufficient.
And I don't mean to debate it with you. Again, it's on Lakeshore Boulevard. It's the fronts of most people's homes. So if I was the neighbor and I had 2 young kids next door, and I said, well, you know what, I like my kids to play in the front yard because there's more room in my backyard is not conducive to whatever, and I want to put up a 6-foot fence in my front yard because that's where my kids play, you're setting a precedent by allowing it in a funny location. And again, I get it where their location is, but they do have considering it's a corner lot, there is a big backyard, a substantial backyard compared to most corner lots. So, if they were to put a 6-foot fence from the corner of their house straight back to the lot line, that's a 37-foot strip right there, which would block the view of their porch and block the view of the rest of their backyard, which is still about 100 feet by, at some point, 40 feet wide, 40 foot wide by about 100 foot long. So they have backyard. I understand they want to utilize the side yard, and I'm trying to be open-minded about it. But again, to put 6-foot fences out along everybody's front yards on Lake Shore is not, it's going to change the character of the neighborhood. It's going to change the character. And again, I get the safety factor of the kids. I mean, I got grandkids. I'm all for it. But I think there's got to be a happy balance there. And again, they were very kind to consider something different. So even though your idea with the shrubs covering a 6-foot-high fence, again, it seems like it'd be a tough spot to put it.
I would like to just counter that, not counter, respond to that by making a point that if we approve a variance, it doesn't matter to me what variance it is, it can always be stated that we are setting a precedent. And I couldn't disagree with that more, because we don't do precedent things here. What we do is individual cases. And as an individual case, considering, lineage, setbacks, safety factors and all that, I don't see a precedent-setting thing here at all. But your point's well taken, though.
Any other questions or comments from any members of the board?
I guess I'd just like to add a comment. I'd be more inclined to approve the length of this variance, the length of the fence, if it was also at a 3.5-foot height and an open type fence. I don't like the full privacy fence either.
Even at a 3.5 foot, I don't want you to get the pictures that you're seeing. I kind of had to make some tweaks as I was going along, just to kind of get it to line up. So I don't want you to be, kind of misunderstand the perspective that you're seeing in the pictures. I mean, 3.5 feet is 3.5 feet.
I think
What-
you already give up a lot of that privacy by going to 3.5 feet.
Right.
So keeping it an open type fence.
Our neighbors have a white vinyl fence that is, in each panel, within the panel, it has smaller strips. I'm sorry, I can't even think of the word that I would be looking for.
Decorative.
But it's see-through, yes, and so that is see-through. Would that be considered? It would still be 6 feet, but it's not like you're saying, it's not a big flat fence looking at you. It's a little bit more open, a little bit more, it's that open construction, and it's quite pretty.
Were you guys planning on a wooden fence or vinyl fence, or haven't you determined that yet?
Well, we started with vinyl. The fence assessor came out and said wood would be better because it's a little more sturdy, especially with winds off the lake and things. But we thought perhaps last time someone had given us a question about how we would deal with the wood fence. So we weren't sure if that was a factor or not. So we thought we'd possibly go back to the white vinyl if it looks a little bit more decorative than just a blockade fence, like you're saying.
In looking at Michael's suggestion that you could close off the backyard very nicely with a 37-foot fence, I wondered if that's anything that you considered through this process.
It is. Our dream in buying this house and this sunny side yard was to have a pool, and we understand that we'll need a variance, but this is a significant cost to us, and we didn't want to fence in the side yard and then have to fence in the backyard and then have to, again, fence in the side yard if and when we were approved for a pool.
That's because your power lines run over the backyard.
Right.
Right.
So where the pool would go in the back, the area that they're talking about, that 27 to 37 foot strip, that's where the power lines are, and there wouldn't be clearance for the pool.
Right.
Also, I noticed that from Lakeshore, you can actually see not just all the way through your backyard, but into your neighbor's backyard and the backyard of the neighbors next to them. It seems to go right down there, so this would also,
Yep. And all three of our neighbors, right there, signed letters the last time saying that they were absolutely fine. So they are in favor of having that blockade between their yards and Lakeshore.
and the house diagonally across the street from yours is closer to Lakeshore than yours is. And they have a big white vinyl fence in their backyard that gives them all the privacy from Lakeshore that you're looking to have on the opposite corner.
Exactly.
Right.
I do have pictures of that property to pass along.
Okay.
But that's their actual backyard.
It's because the way the builder put the house on their lot as opposed to the lot across the street. That's,
Yeah, but it
It's-
would be, because their house also, the front of their house also faces Rock Beach. So if they were to do, a similar placement fence, it would be on their garage side.
which they don't have any.
Right, which they don't have the room, because they
They've
got the
already
garage,
run.
in that
Right.
house, the garage is on the opposite side of the house.
Yeah, the builder did a much better job across the street of laying out the house
Yeah.
than he did on your corner.
And we, purchasing a house, we had never lived in a house on the corner. We didn't grow up in a house on the corner. We really had no idea when we bought this house that it would be, we knew we'd need a variance. We didn't realize that honestly, we may not be able to use the house in the fashion in which we purchased it for. And we're there until we die. So we're really hoping that we're able to use it in the way that we were hoping for our kids. But yes, it would ideally be flipped as the house kitty corner to us is.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Then we will open it up to public discussion. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hinman, I just wanted to pass
Oh.
along a couple of notes, a couple more letters
Okay.
in favor of the project, and I'll pass them along.
And we had 6 from our neighbors last time, from our immediate neighbors.
Okay.
Would you like to read them into the?
I'll read them, sure. I assume these come up in the first part of the meeting? The public session, not
Yes.
the second or third? Okay. First letter is from Christina Carey. I am writing to show my support for the privacy fence variance requested by the Robinson family at the corner of Lake Shore and Rock Beach Road. As a Rock Beach Road neighbor, I have no problems with the fence being built on this property. I do not believe it will have any negative effects on the overall look of the neighborhood. As a parent, I support the Robinsons' wish to keep their children as safe as possible. The fence will provide a barrier keeping the children away from Lake Shore, a very busy road. Please consider and grant the variance request. Thank you for your time. There's also a letter from Karen and David Johnson at 295 Colebrook. They reference the fact that they are proud lifelong residents of West Arundecoit and multi-generational claim to that. And the main reason they continue to choose West Arundecoit is that the town and the people have always made the children a #1 priority, and that their home goes beyond their front door. The Robinson family lives on one of the busiest, most traveled thoroughfares in Arundecoit, with a constant stream of traffic made up of not just local residents, but also those just passing through. Their request for a private safety fence seems more than reasonable, considering they have 2 young children. I have been there on several occasions with my children, have witnessed the excessive speed, loud music, and occasional rude comments from vehicles passing by their home. I would absolutely be making the same request if this was my property. I am sure that many of you would as well. Privacy fence is an expensive addition and would add to the value and beauty of their property for years to come, while providing the added security and privacy that everyone else in the community enjoys. In fact, there is a privacy fence directly across the street on the corner of Lakeshore Boulevard and Rock Beach Road. I in no way find this offensive. In fact, I find it adds charm to the property. We feel that every family in this town has a right to enjoy their property and feel that their home is a safe and comfortable place to raise their children. Hopefully you will agree and support their request. Are there others here who wish to speak in favor of the application? If so, please come up to the podium and state your name and address for Michelle. You do not need to be sworn. You can do it however you'd like. You can come up one at a time. You can form a line over there. Whatever, there's no rules about that.
Hello. My name is Jeff Riedmiller. I live at 17 Greendale Drive. I just wanted to say, to touch on the point about the variance issue. Granted, when they were looking at this house as first-time home buyers, they weren't necessarily aware of all the intricacies that came with corner lots. The legal definition of a front yard versus side yard, it's a legal issue. And then you get into the issue of what a variance is for. Variances, to me, in an issue just like this, where you have the legal definition and then you have the working definition of the day-to-day life of the homeowner. And to me, this seems like a clear-cut case where, yes, you have what is the longest strip of land to indicate what is the front yard versus the backyard versus the side yard, but then you have what is the real-world application of that. And to me, this seems like a perfect instance of where a variance would come into play. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next.
Hi, I'm Kim Saxon. I live at 71 Bellhurst Drive. Like the Robinsons, I have two young boys, are 6 and 8, same age as their girls, and a backyard should be a safe haven for the children. And I really think that fences are for families and for, and they make good neighbors too when you have one between them. But I really think that it's necessary to keep the children safe. That's the number one priority, I think. Thanks.
My name is Julie Flynn. I live at 323 Summershire Drive. We moved to Arundequoit 10 years ago. We lived on Pontiac for 5 years until our teeny little house there that we moved there for because right before we moved, we came to this little town that my sister and her husband had moved to and totally fell in love with it. It's big and small, old and new, young and old. There's a lot of diversity culturally and financially. There's just a little bit of everything here, and that's what we really like about it. We moved because we needed to expand our home. 3 girls, 1,400 square feet, and 1 bathroom was just not going to cut it for us anymore. So we moved to Summershire Drive. Our lot, actually, as I'm listening to all the conversation, is a double lot, and there is a pool, an in-ground pool in the side yard, which is our house, as the double lot faces. Our house is here and the pool is here. And I don't know technically what part of the yard that's considered, but it just occurred to me as I'm listening. We have a big fat pool in the side yard, and it's a concrete tub in the ground built there in good old Arundequoit style. Dad said, if you want a pool, go out and dig it. And the kid went out and dug it, and there's our pool. There's so many issues here, but the kids being safe, I think, is the number one factor. I know when my kids are in our pool, Summershire is a cut through, but it's much less busy than Lakeshore. I don't have that same concern of the fencing. We have a lot of really well-established, thanks to the original owners who were avid gardeners. We have, I think, the biggest rhododendron in Arundequoit, blocking most of our pool. But the times of being able to set our kids out in the yard and send them to play, especially on a corner lot like that, have come and gone. And I listened to the letter that was written in protest about the fence at the last meeting. And a lot of points I agree with that the man said, but I think that time has come and gone. We live in a different time, and the realities of keeping our kids safe in this time, in this age, and in situations like this has to be our number one priority. In the past 3 years, we've known 10 families to move out of Arundequoit in search of a bigger yard. Most of them fenced in Webster and Penfield as I go to visit these friends who have now moved out of Arundequoit in search of those. We love Arundequoit. We moved here for all the reasons that we'll stay here and want to see young families. And one of the things that I think is great about Arundequoit is there's a great variety of professions, blue-collar, white-collar families that live here. This is a professional family who loves their kids and does the best that they can for them. They have 2 very kind children in the community, and they're trying to do their best for them. And I, as a resident, as a family member, as a friend, really hope that Arundequoit can support families like this in providing for their children, and kind of look at, as was mentioned, the legal issues of side yard, front yard, and the realities of side yard, front yard, and how we can let our kids live. At the last board meeting, as I watched, and I really have to say thank you for all the work that you do, because that was no Grey's Anatomy episode, watching the last zoning board meeting on TV. But it takes a lot of commitment to do that, so thank you. There were 6 applicants on corner lots for 6-foot fence privacy fencing, and 5 of them were approved. And so that was confusing to me about why 5 of those. And I think there were some size differences, and I'm sure there were details that I missed in watching the meeting. But, you know, these variances, and I just feel like they need to be looked at individually, and the individual cases need to be looked at. But if we want to keep our kids safe, then we really need to be careful about, you know, what we're saying will and won't work. And I wrote down all these notes to keep myself organized. That clearly hasn't worked. Mr. Thomas, I just wrote your name down here. Thank you for your comments about keeping kids safe, and I think that's what it really comes back to. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Is there anyone who would like to come up to the podium and talk about it?
I didn't plan on talking about it. I have a private office at the corner of Hudson and Titus, and I have a very long fence. And I think Russ's point was well taken. If you use landscaping with the fence, it can look really good. And the other thing is, I asked Morris Lumber, I said, I'm putting in a long fence, what do I do to make it look decent? And his comment was, make the boards 3 different sizes. And it really, I think, helps a lot. It's not a privacy fence, but it has, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch between the slats. It lets wind go through it, I kind of like it. And then I planted a lot of burning bush, and they make a very nice hedge front. And they were about 3 feet high when I started. Within 5 years, they're about this high now. So, and the other thing is that I think if you leave enough room to plant on both sides, it makes it look a heck of a lot nicer. So, good luck. Hope it works. And if you want to stop by my property, you're welcome to stop in. I'll show you what I did. 590 Titus, right at the corner. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was John Lambert. He's coming up later on the agenda, our 3rd case on the agenda. All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to come up and talk about it? All right. Seeing none, then we will close the hearing with respect to this case and move on to our next matter.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is case number ZB 1408-1. Upon the matter of request by Timothy and Sandra English for area variances to construct an additional detached garage exceeding maximum allowable height and number and with less than required side setback on premises 472 St. Joseph Street in an RR residential district.
Tim English, my name, 472 St. Joseph Street.
And Sandra English.
If you'd raise your right hands, do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
You want to put a 2-car garage on the,
I want to put a 2-car garage on my property. We currently have 2 collector cars, and we would like to park them in there, along with some other storage space for other items in our yard. We currently have 2 sheds on the property. We would like to take down one of them. It's one of the old plastic Sears, nothing closes straight, nothing's square. And so we'd like to get rid of that and be able to use that as storage also.
Now, this says that you are looking for 12 to 15 feet from the property line. Why is it 12 to 15? Why don't we know the number yet?
Well,
Is it because I saw there's a tree on the other side and you're not sure if it's going to bump into that tree or not?
it's the
We-
tree.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
We don't
That's it.
want to have to cut down trees.
Okay.
That's why we set it back off the driveway also.
'Cause there's a tree
Because
on
there's a tree on the side of the driveway, and we're trying to not cut down trees. I
Thank
just
you.
don't want to do that.
Yeah.
and this garage is going to abut the long driveway that goes back to Jody Amon's property,
Correct.
and I believe a year or two ago, we allowed her to build a separate building
Her
for her.
office.
Today,
Yeah.
this year you did.
Well, it was, they approved it
Yeah,
last year.
that's
I think we approved it a year or two ago.
Yeah.
And so it's between your property and her property, it's pretty wide open. And it's not going to be a congested kind of feel like it might be in other places in town.
I don't
I
believe so.
don't believe so. If anything, it may give us a little bit of privacy from her clients going to her office. Right now, our back patio is kind of open to their driveway. And it's not, I mean, it's not like she has,
It's not a problem.
it's not a problem. It just would give us a little bit more privacy.
They stop to look at your cars?
Yeah.
As you run it close?
But, and we would, currently we store our cars off-site, and we have to pay up to $1,000 a year now to store them. And for collector car insurance, which both vehicles, can qualify for, you have to have them under lock and key at all times. So, we would be able to save on insurance, and we would also be able to save by not having to store them off-site.
Good.
So,
And there's actually 3 variances that we're asking for. The height issue, on the plans that we've given everyone, we estimate the height to be,
originally, what we provided was, because we weren't sure, we're still in the designing stages, but we would like to do it 26 feet wide, okay? And a 26-foot wide garage has, from grade to ridge, it's 15 feet 4 inches, okay? And if you, to the midpoint of the
wall height, Or
the
the-
midpoint of the, what is that?
peak.
The eave?
gable.
The
Peak.
eave? It's 12 feet 8 inches, so we would be 8 inches over the 12 feet height variant.
Okay.
The overall height is 15.4, the average is gonna be 12.8, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And
On
then,
on the diagram, you had a 30-foot wide, but then you brought it into
into
26 foot.
26. Yeah,
26.
to accommodate the setback.
The
from
setback, so that, if we do 26, we should be able to keep that pine tree and meet the 15 feet. We should.
And then the 30-foot depth is so that you can take some of the storage from
Right.
the
Pull 2 cars in and
Right.
still have room in the front.
For his lawn tractor and all his
A
toys.
bench and, tools and such.
And then in a few years, you realize you'll need another shed.
Well-
Because they fill.
No.
I could ask for
no.
the garage mahal, but
Yeah.
Well, considering we moved from the city last year from a, 1,100 square foot house, and we're already need a garage.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Is there anyone here that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here that wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Is there anyone here who would like to come up to the podium and talk about it with us? Seeing none, we will close the hearing and move on to our next case.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is case number ZB 1408-2. Upon the matter of request by John and Rebecca Lambricks for an area variance to construct a covered front porch with less than required front setback on premises 17 North Terrace in an R2 residential district.
Hello, John Lambricks.
Rebecca Lambricks, 17 North Terrace.
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah, yes. Well, we'd
You'd like to put a porch on the front of your house?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We'd like to put a porch on the front. We'd like it to be 6 feet wide, over 11 feet on one side to spare a tree that we have an aged dogwood. And then on the other side, we'd like it to come out 9 feet, so it'd be 11 feet by 6 and 16 4 by 9. we brought it in on each side to give it a little interest, and I like the shape of it in terms of giving a little more interest as well.
My curiosity, and you answered that question already, was, is the roof of the 6-foot part of the porch going to be out? But it is not because you're saving that tree.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that was the idea. My kids wanted to kill me for suggesting we take the tree down, so.
Sentimental tree.
Yeah, this is a good night to be a tree.
Yeah. There are other nights when it's a good night to be a chicken, but tonight we're dealing with trees.
Going to the neighborhood today, it took me a while to find it, thank you very much, but we were able to find it. And I noticed that there are other houses with front porches on them. So this would sort of fit right into the character of the neighborhood. I know they don't all. I did ask the person I was talking to about the big stone in the way.
Yeah.
And he said that, John, you take care of that. No, I was hoping it would just disappear. My question is not so much about the actual structure. What is that stone for?
It's a millstone, and I liked it, so I bought it. There was a guy out on the corner of Clover and the Thruway who owned a house. It was a cobblestone house that sat way down in, and he just loved stones, and he had stones all over his property. I think he had 66 millstones. And when he died, I got a hold of the person who was dealing with the estate. There's 2 more in the backyard, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah. They're 5,000 pounds. But anyways, I just liked them.
We like front porches too, because as Gary used to say, that's Americana. Sit out on the front porch, say hi to your neighbors, chit chat, and that type of thing. So
Well,
I
it's
think
cool on that side of the house, too.
It's cool, yes.
Yes.
And it's also a cool idea.
Well, thank you.
He is.
Russ has got 'em.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone who wishes to oppose this application?
Hello, I'm Ellen Scott, and I live at 27 North Terrace, so I'm next door neighbors to John and Rebecca. And my concern relates to the view and the sight from my front yard and my house. There's been, since we moved there, a lot of construction in that house. They elevated the land, put a driveway in the front of the house, added a garage, added a fence to the garage, which took away my view of the yacht club and the river out the back. So initially I had that view, and I've lost all of that view. My concern about putting a porch on the front of the house is that right now from my kitchen and my living room, I can see the river and the lake, and that I won't have that sight anymore. And so I'll be kind of boxed in, as I will be from my driveway, backing out depending on how extensive it is. I just took a couple pictures, but if you've been to our neighborhood, it's not, I'm the middle house. There's only one other person, I think, who has a real front porch on, and it's my neighbor across the street, but their house was set back enough that it didn't really block neighborhood view. It's a lovely porch, and it does add nice, but my concern is my property value, what I've lost from a garage, a fence, a shed, bushes, so that now even standing in my yard, I can no longer see out the back, which I used to be able to see, but that's fine. But I didn't want to lose and be totally boxed in with a front porch added to the front. So I'm a non-curtain window person, and I like being there and like being able to see out. I just took a couple pictures that just show you what I see when I look out my windows that face the river and the lake.
I should add to, the person I talked to, and I don't really know who I talked to today, he was working on the Lambricks house, mentioned to me that the dimensions of the front porch did not extend beyond the front of your house. So I mentioned that only because I didn't ask him that. I couldn't really tell from my information how far it extended in relation to your house. But he mentioned that as if that was already a concern. I mean, it was an issue that I think was in the people's minds who are proposing this, not to totally ignore your situation.
And-
That's the impression I got.
And that may well be what, they just redid the driveway, which is fine, so the workman was out there the one day, and because, we're right on the property line, putting the driveway, in, I don't know what measurement was done initially, when it was first done, so I just went out to make sure and ask him if they had measured, because they put the driveway in, and then they put a wooden fence in, and raised the elevation of the land. They used to have a garage and a driveway in the back of the house, which got moved out to the front. So I had asked him, so he may know that it's a concern, because I went out just to look, and he said, "What are you looking at?" And I said, "Well, I was just looking to see where you put the apron of the driveway, because I have plants and flowers there," and so he may know that that's a concern. But I'm talking from the inside of my house. That's my back of my house.
Oh, the back, okay.
That's the back of my house, and that garage was not there when I moved in, nor that little extended fence. And so I used to be able to be in my house and see out the back and see the whole back basin of the yacht club. My yard goes through. I have a lot behind me, and so it goes all the way through to Parkview Terrace. And so I used to be able to see until that component was done, which took away all that openness and view of the yacht club basin. So my concern about having this happen in the front is then I've lost all my view. My property value is already questionable based on what construction was already done, but to have additional work done, would just block, from my perspective, the view. I don't want to be awful about it, but, I don't mind people doing things. But one is from my two front windows, what I see.
This is the question that I have for you. You're talking about the view being blocked,
Yeah,
right? And as I'm looking at the photograph, I'm looking at this area that you can see
right.
down the street, all right? And my understanding of the application is that this is going to be a porch with a floor that would be where the wagon is with the flowers in it, and then over further where that bush is that now is blocking a part of the view towards the river. So that bush will come out, and this would be a floor, and the dogwood tree is still going to be there, and the roof is going to come. Well, I wouldn't imagine that it would be anywhere different than where the leaves of the dogwood are in order to preserve the dogwood. So it's not going to be enclosed. This is an open porch. So what you see in this photograph, it seems to me, is largely still going to be there, if not enhanced, by taking out this bush, opening that up. He's putting a roof over it and having a floor.
My concern is that it won't stay that way, which is what initially happened with the garage, and they put a deck on, and then they took the deck and just put what I would consider a privacy wall all along across the edge of the deck, which was on my side on my side, which then totally blocked the view. So there's a lot of activity normally, and so that's my concern.
I would just like to ask council a question. If we grant a variance, does that in any way extinguish any easements she would have of light or anything like that?
Well, I don't know that she would necessarily have any, but no, you could not extinguish any private property rights that she would have by granting a variance for a neighboring property.
Yeah, and I have no idea what exists or doesn't exist. I am not a property attorney.
The other thing is with respect to your concern that in the future it might be closed in, if we grant a variance for an open porch, it's a variance for an open porch. To close it in at a later date, they'd have to come back and either get another variance or get something from the town that would allow them to close it, because that would then be construction that would require permits, approvals, and everything else. So what the application that's in front of us is for an open porch that would be covered, and it will have a floor. So it's not for an enclosed porch that's going to block the view, and as I see the pictures that you took looking out your window, placing the application on top of it, seems to me that it doesn't impair your view. If anything, it's going to leave it roughly the same, and it may even enhance it by taking out bushes that right now are blocking your view to the west.
Which is fine in the summer, but fall, winter, and spring, I can see to the lake, Charlotte Beach on the lake, and that little opening that looks like white space, that's the River Yacht Club basin that I can see. And that's inside my house. And from the kitchen, I can see the lake. And I used to be able to look at the kitchen window and see the river that way and the lake that way. And fences have gone up after, that existing thing exists, and I don't want to complain and bring up old history with the town, but I tried to indicate that this happened, and it happened many years ago, and there wasn't an interest in changing or investigating. So I have a real concern that I can't envision that this is not going to harm my view out the front.
Well,
And I don't know if someone, I would say, does someone else want to come and look? I mean, to make a fair decision, I don't want to be unfair and not let people have a porch and things that, enhance their property or the ability. Front porches are very nice things, but that is my concern.
I can sympathize with you based on the pictures. The other thing too is, if he had an open porch and then puts furniture out there, puts a sunshade up on one end of it, whatever the case, then before you know it, it's got stuff on it, which would be fine for him, but it might block her view. I understand her concerns, especially living there. One of the biggest things in living in that area is to see the view. I do notice his backyard is quite cluttered, and he's done a lot of hard work back there. There's no doubt about it. But there is a lot of stuff and tall trees and that do block the backyard view of anything. So I can see your point.
What?
If we want to deliberate more, we can, but the public input for this person has been over 5 minutes.
Well, we've never kept the timer here.
Oh, okay.
Unlike
No, I'm
other
just saying, just
meetings, no, we don't.
In fairness, we're.
Yeah.
going back.
Any other questions or comments with respect to the neighbor here?
I
Okay,
guess,
thank you.
I just have a quick one. It just concerns me. I sympathize too. I can see your point very clearly. I guess my question to you is, would you like us to deny the variance, period? Would you like us to deny the variance? I mean, we're speaking in opposition to it, so I guess you're making a very valid point. There's a view situation. Do you want us to deny the variance? Is that okay to ask that question?
Do I have it? Sure. I am not familiar with these processes at all, and I couldn't read architectural drawings, and I don't know what the town does when people do this. Do you come out and remeasure where everything happens to sit and what structures were put up, and did they meet guidelines when they were put up? I don't know that. So by me saying, would you like to deny, does that mean I'm going to talk about it? I mean, I don't want to not harm people.
In order to get your final inspections, you have to prove that it's drawn to the spec that was approved. So.
Okay, but I meant previous things like fences that are
Prefer
sitting
not to
there.
have the porch there? I mean,
Yes, I would
yeah,
prefer
okay,
not to
that-
have the
that's-
porch there.
the
That's
answer to
my question.
Russ's question.
So you're asking us to deny
And
the
I-
application?
Okay, then I guess I am asking that.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition to the application? Is there anyone that would like to come to the podium and talk about it? Would the applicant like to address any points that were raised during the public hearing?
I don't want to get into old battles here, but when we moved into the property, we were the only house on the street that didn't have a front driveway. So we wanted to put in a front driveway, and Pete and Ellie next door were upset with us, because Ellie's comment was, now I can hear your door, so your car's shutting, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, I hear your doors too, you know, you get used to those things. So we were trying to improve the property, and along the ways we did things, they were getting upset, and we did initially try to have things done in a way that would preserve their view, and it got to be a nightmare. I had plans drawn like 3 times to try to do this, but it seemed like nothing we did was enough. So after a while, they wouldn't speak to us at times, you know, and so I just said, I don't need to deal with this. So in my backyard, I thought, what the heck, I'm just going to plant things so I don't have to face that every day. You know, she wouldn't speak to our kids, and it just got ugly, unfortunately. And our other neighbors who are closer to the lake, they put in a huge maple tree in the backyard. We can't see anything. Now, were we upset? Yes. Do we still speak to them? Yes. Because it's their right, it's their property, they do whatever the heck they want. We don't have a view any longer out our back because they wanted to plant this tree for their privacy. So that's kind of the history of it. I do appreciate the fact, I understand. At one point, we had a garage under the house, and we had rodents. It was just a pain in the neck, and the driveway was in the back, so we switched it to the front. And I asked them about putting in a garage, and we needed a variance then, and we said, we'll put it on the side of the house so it won't affect your view. Well, they didn't want that, and the comment from her husband, Pete, they're both very nice people. It is very unfortunate. His comment was, it's going to create shade in their kitchen. So I said, well, listen, we could shorten the garage up to preserve that, so that won't be a problem. We just need to be able to open the doors once we pull the car in. So we're going to have the garage forward. And they said, well, then we're looking into a garage. Well, I said, you're looking into the side of the house or you're looking into the garage? So, I mean, it's some of the history, and it is unfortunate. And I'm not looking to block their view off in front. The way their house is situated in front, there isn't, I don't know where they would sit. They've got the whole thing planted and bushed in. So I don't think, and they stepped forward to us, I don't think it's really going to block their view, but I don't know. I'm not looking for a fight here either.
Okay. Thank you. Close the case with respect to that application, move on to the next case.
Next item on the agenda is case number ZB 1408-4. Upon the matter of request by Katrina Katzberg for an area variance to construct a 15-foot by 20-foot deck and rear yard with less than required rear setback on premises 63 Keating Drive in an R2 residential district.
My name is Jeff Thomas. I'm the applicant.
My name is Katrina Kastberg. I live at 63 Keating Drive.
If you'd raise your right hands. Do you swear that, or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I'm the applicant. I'm also the contractor. She's looking for a variance for a deck. It's a pre-existing non-conforming lot. She wants I got that wrong. 20 feet deep, 20 feet wide, 15 feet deep, and it doesn't conform to the existing code. Two of the things that I know that are an issue is the yard slopes. It's not a huge grade, but it's
Like 30 degrees.
it's not comfortable. It's not, I mean, just when I was there measuring the yard, it's not comfortable even to use the yard the way it is. And the other thing I know we talked about was that she likes to have family over, and it's because the yard is sloped like that, it's not conducive to that. I know she had a letter. I don't have a copy of the letter that was part of the application of other.
I I also have signatures from my neighbors. I have the signatures from the people in front of me, in back of me, and on either side of me, as well as my own signature, of course.
Okay, if you'd pass that around.
Seems to me that I'm right here. It seems to me that you're one of the few houses that doesn't have a deck or something special built on at
That's
this
true.
point. So I'm sure you feel out of place, right? We need to get,
Yeah.
well, my question is, how are you going to get onto the deck? Is there, you got to put a door in somewhere?
Yeah, there's going to be a sliding glass door coming off of my kitchen.
There's an existing window there now.
You got a double window here?
Double window,
Is that
yes,
the
sir.
kitchen?
Yes, sir.
Oh, so you'd probably come right out and you put the sliding glass.
Yeah.
Okay. I looked at that and said, how are they going to get out onto the deck? That makes sense.
And just to clarify, you're seeking a variance because you want your deck to be 15 feet deep, and the code only allows it to be 9.5 feet deep. So you
That's
just want a
correct.
15-foot,
That's correct.
and there's going to be 24.5 feet from the 15-foot deck that you want to the back of the property. So you don't have any problem giving up those 5 feet of backyard space to get the deck,
No.
right? All right.
Just out of curiosity on the contractor end of it, is that electric box got to get moved?
Is it the meter?
Yep.
The meter was not going to be moved.
Doesn't have to be moved?
I asked my brother-in-law, he's a licensed electrician, he said the one thing you have to do is cover up the entrance cable. But
Cover up the cable down the side of the,
It's horizontal.
okay.
Is the floor going to be above the service entrance or below it?
Below. The top of the deck?
Yeah.
Below, yes.
So that's going to be, actually, it's in the doorway.
It's exposed, but it covered with conduit. Not existing. But I know what you're saying.
I'm trying to figure out where your floor is going to be in relationship to the service entrance that he's talking about. If you're going to be above it, service entrance is going to be below it. Because, I mean, where the window is, where you're going to come down at least 6 feet, so.
I would think that would have to be
I
moved,
think it would be underneath.
Okay, when gonna go?
because you'll be stepping right on that service entrance.
Seems like it to me.
It depends where the floor line is on the inside, but it's pretty close where it is, where this is showing.
Oh, the floor line is that's probably right at the floor line of the house, is that what you mean?
Right,
And that's where
your door's,
door going to come out.
You said it was going to be a step down.
It'll be one course of block down. That's theoretically where, yes, it's below the door. Is that what's the question that you're asking?
Well, the question, where the floor line of the deck is going to be, the service entrance is going to be above it. If that's what you're saying. If you're stepping down a step, I'm trying to visualize where this floor line is.
Right. The top of the deck will be
So you'll have a
one course of block. The floor is obviously
bottom of the door
right at the
here.
bottom of the siding, up a little, no, you're right.
They'll be stepping down onto the deck.
You're stepping,
So that's going to be, the problem, what I'm thinking, from my envisioning, where the bottom of the door is going to be, where the service entrance is. Because, if, I don't know what the height of that window is, and, if it's a 6-foot door,
right.
where that's all going to change and
Oh,
come,
are you asking if the service entrance cable is above the existing floor line?
yeah.
Above the
deck.
deck floor.
It will be above the top of the deck. Is it?
But it goes into the
exact placement
basement.
right now, I don't know.
It's probably below the floor line as far as the house goes going in. How much?
So you're going to cover it over with the step?
I don't know if you can do that, I don't know.
Well, it wouldn't be as,
I think what I'm hearing is that we should suggest to the applicant that they hire a licensed electrician to help them
Right.
make sure they're up to code.
Well, it has to be done in accordance with code. If we approve the variance,
right.
the town comes out and tells them what they have to do to comply, so. You may have a
I don't
problem
think any
with
of us have any problem with the deck, we just want you to be aware of the wire.
I understand.
Okay.
The only issue that RG&E may have an issue with, the placement of the meter as far as a reading standpoint.
Right, which, from the sounds of it, the meter's gonna be right on the floor next to the
It'll
deck,
be, yeah.
right there, so
That might be an issue.
that might be an issue. That meter might have to move.
You should probably check with RG&E before you
Right.
start building, but
Yeah, well, I'm
obviously.
Tom doesn't do what the building, I understand that.
Don't worry about it.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone like to come up and talk to us for a little while? All right. We will close the hearing with respect to this case and move on to what I believe is our last case.
Last item on the agenda is case number ZB 1408-5. Upon the matter request by Deborah Schmidt for an area variance to construct a new roof over existing patio exceeding maximum allowable lot coverage on premises 41 Garford Road in an R2 residential district.
Hello, my name is Debbie Schmidt, and I live at 41 Garford Road. And do I need to be sworn in before I start yakking?
Yep. Yeah, do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right.
I'm requesting a variance for a roof to cover my now existing concrete patio because we cannot sit out there during the day because of the sun, and the only times available is around 7 o'clock at night. By that time, I'm almost ready for bed. So it's not going to be enclosed. I just want something to cover it. It's not going to be any larger than my existing patio. And that's what I am requesting.
The overhead photo doesn't do your backyard justice.
It doesn't?
No, your backyard, I was very impressed with your landscaping and
Well, thank
gardens
you.
in the backyard.
Thank you very much. I bought the house from my mom. My mom is 95, and Mom did all the yard work. So now I'm taking over, and the home is in good shape, but it needs to be renewed. Everything is old. So that's what I'm in there for, and Mom loves to sit outside, but she can't with all that sun beating down on us. So I said, a roof is in order.
Good idea.
I looked into the retractable sun thing, but you know what? Sometimes we get those winds, and I don't want to come home and find my sunroof at my neighbor's house or anything. And I said, something a little more permanent, you know, that would be a little more, just better, you know, as far as the snow and everything else. So yeah, that's what I'd like to do.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I just want to make the comment, and I always like to do this, when you look at a house and you can tell that it is nicely cared for. And
Thank you.
I'm sure the neighbor, and the neighbors' houses were also nicely groomed.
All my neighbors, I
Yeah.
have two of my neighbors here, and they all take very well
I think
care of their
it's
homes.
commendable, and it's a pleasure to drive by.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. We try, right?
You do a
Right, you
good
guys?
job, all of you. Yep.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Step right up.
I'm Robert Wilson of 2118 Titus Avenue,
Erica Wilson, 2118 Titus Avenue.
and we live right behind her, and honestly, all three of them back there are just immaculate, so. And it's a pleasure living there. I mean, we've been there for 39 years, and it's just great, fantastic. My mother used to go out on the porch. She used to go out and clean the gutters. I mean, it was, I can't even get up there. We're 2.5 stories high, so I can't clean my gutters like that, but
It's an excellent backyard. We have no problem
no complaints.
at all with having them do anything to the house or the structure outside.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak in favor of the application?
Hello, my name is James Wright. I live at 49 Garford Road, right next to Deb Schmidt. And we just moved in, my wife and I, last year. And she's probably got the nicest looking house on the street. And we're very glad to be her neighbor. She's a very nice woman. And we have no problem whatsoever with anything that she is proposing to do with the yard. It won't change a thing. And that's really all I have to say about it, so.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that wishes to speak in opposition to this application?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. I know it's out of order, but we have a sheet in our packet that says Grandview Road. A Grandview Road, I assume, is Garford Road. Was it once called Grandview?
And the site survey here, I was looking at that.
If you notice, that document is from 1927 that you're looking at,
So what does that mean?
from Grandview.
I mean, it went from Grandview to Garford, apparently.
Thank you. We'll sleep better tonight knowing that.
All right. Is that the map that your mother got when she bought the property that you attached?
I'm sorry?
Was that the map that your mother received when she bought the property?
Yes, as a matter of fact, yes, and she still had it. Mom has everything. Mom has everything. Yes, so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where I got the map
Catch.
from.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that either. Is there anyone that would like to talk to us some more tonight about anything? All right, seeing none, we'll, okay.
Oh, another neighbor.
I live at 76 Garford Road, and the house has been perfect and beautiful since 1960. There's never been anything wrong, and they've always worked very hard on the house, and it's just lovely. And we're glad to have that house on our street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to talk to us tonight? Seeing none, we will close the hearing, and we will be in recess until 20 of 9. Okay, I'm going to call through the cases to see which applicants are still here. If you're here, just indicate in some fashion. 869 Lakeshore Boulevard, 472 St. Joseph Street, 17 North Terrace, 63 Keating Drive, 47 Garford Road.
It's 41, Garford, and I'm here.
41. All right, so the first application that we have is with respect to 869 Lakeshore Boulevard, also known as 250 Rock Beach Road. This is a, whoops, you are from St. Joseph Street, so I'm going to bump you back in. All right. Is there anyone else out there? Okay, all right. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion that we approve this variance as presented tonight on Rock Beach Road with the following findings. The first area is a possible change to the character of the neighborhood, and I do believe that this is a serious issue because of the extent of the project. And I think the people who are planning on doing this are aware of it and have, in fact, watered down the plan a little bit, backed off a little bit to lessen the impact on the neighborhood. So I think that although it's still an issue, in my opinion, the effort is worth our approval. Alternatives not requiring a variance, would be pointless, I think, to try to come up with a variance that didn't, or to come up with a plan that didn't need a variance. It's just that kind of a situation where you have a large yard and you want to make it safe for the children. Substantiality, yes, it's a substantial request. Nothing unusual about that. We know it's a large variance, but the footage of fence is mainly due to the layout of the property. There would be no particular effect on the environmental conditions, since they were not talking about drainage or wires or anything else at this point. It's just the fence. And is it self-created? And the answer for that is yes, it is. But that was one of the reasons they purchased the property. And I think they are indicated that they're very sensitive to the situation with regard to the neighborhood and actually some of the points that were brought up by other board members. I would like to include in this motion a condition. And the condition would be that whether you use a wood fence or a white fence, I like the wood myself, but I don't want to make that a condition. I think that's up to you. That we soften the visual impact with the planting of natural green shrubbery reasonably around the fence. That's the motion.
I'll second that.
Is there any negotiations to that at all?
I think this is the time where we would have that discussion, that we would, among ourselves, that we would talk about what we like, what we don't like, what we think maybe should be different.
Well, the actual motion, or the actual packet that we have in front of us shows that the fence goes forward of the home on Rock Beach Road toward Rock Beach, and then jets out toward Lakeshore Boulevard to the northwest. It actually goes west off the corner of the house and then forward. I think we talked about this a little bit, and they actually did say that they'd be willing to come straight off the corner of the house which I believe that should be a change. I also.
I understood that to be that he changed it, that's what he's looking for now.
Yeah, that's
It's
not in our
coming
packet.
straight
That's
off.
the way I read it into
So
it
the-
also.
So just so we're clear, if we grant the motion, it's for a fence that is going to come straight off the northwest corner of the house and be a continuation of that line.
Okay. All right, just want to make sure it's in
Yep.
there. The other part of it is I feel that we either, and I would give the applicant the choice of either going with a 4-foot privacy, and I would give them 4 foot instead of 3.5, 4-foot privacy fence, the full 40 feet out and across, parallel to Lake Shore and back around, and make it a privacy fence, whether it be vinyl or wood, or a 6-foot fence and bring it back in on the one side toward the house, about 27 feet off the corner of the house, which would parallel Lakeshore Boulevard out approximately 42 feet from the existing back fence. It's going to bring it back in, but it still gives them approximately a 30 by 52 playing, or no, 30 by approximately 50 playing area in that side yard, with either a 6-foot fence or going out to 40 feet with a shorter fence. I would suggest that we ask the applicant what they prefer.
I believe the applicant said earlier that they would prefer to have a shorter fence with more space.
Yes, they did say that.
Yeah, I believe that. And
I would suggest that as the alternative, instead of going with a tall fence.
I would have, I don't know that I would agree with a 6-foot fence that follows these dimensions. I would not have a problem with the 4-foot fence though.
And a privacy fence, not a picket fence. And then for safety, they could add shrubbery on the outside of the fence, the inside of the fence to,
I think what I would like to see here is a separate motion once the other one's defeated, because I believe that the 6-foot is part of the critical part of this plan, and we've discussed this before with the people around the traffic area and so forth, being able to see into the backyard. And to me, those kids are worth more than 2 feet of tall on the fence. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. So I don't want to change it to the 4 feet. I would be opposed to that, and if the second agrees, and we go ahead and vote on it, and it's voted down, fine.
well, again, and that's why I would, if we do vote it down and we do a second motion, I would ask to talk to the folks again to say if they in fact want a 6-foot fence for the safety, if they would accept a shorter lineage around, in other words, it not going out 40 feet, or for that matter, 30 feet.
I agree with Mr. Thomas though. You and I might be the only naysayers and it might be moot.
Okay.
We can do whatever we want in terms of asking the applicant.
Okay.
Once
We
we can have a second motion that gets made. We're not, strictly locked into a procedure when we have this presents a very interesting issue that I know that the board has differing views on. I think the 6-foot, I agree with Mr. Thomas that I think the 6-foot, the difference of the 2 feet, when you're talking at that roadway, the traffic, people staying out of the yard, I think that 2 feet is critical to the safety issue. I think they've come a long way in terms of meeting the concerns and objections that were voiced at the last meeting. They've backed all the way off of Rock Beach, they've come way back off of Lake Shore. They've indicated that they're striking a balance and willing to strike a balance between their desire to use their property in a safe fashion, along with the concerns that were raised about the impact of large fencing and such a long fence along a road like Lake Shore. I agree with one of the comments that somebody made, that Lake Shore is a much different animal than most of the other roads in town that residential properties are on. the traffic on Lake Shore, it's even different from what's on St. Paul or on Culver, because those roads are not, this is a cross-link.
Right,
that
but it's still
comes
a
straight.
residential
It-
street,
It is a residential street, there's no question about that.
some, a beautiful bunch of homes.
Oh, yes, and,
So to
yeah, and it's unfortunate
the-
that when the house was built, it was built in such a way that almost deprives them of a rear yard, and the side yard that they have, which is a backyard, is,
I know at the last
gonna be
meeting
a-
you had mentioned to cut it back to 30 feet out from the house.
right, which,
Now we're going with the motion of 40 feet.
I had thrown it out at 30 feet, just as, to see what their position was.
Right. Okay.
But I think they've, and what I was concerned about the sight lines along Lake Shore, so when I went down yesterday and he had it staked out, and I know he'd already had discussions with you, that I was able to look and see where he had the post. He had the one out as far as he wanted to go out towards Rock Beach, and then there was a second one that was at the corner of the house going straight on. And when you looked at that one and sighted down Lake Shore, you can see everything that's coming at you, which was the concern that I had about being closer to Lake Shore, was he blocking the view? So at 40 feet, he's not depriving someone who's sitting at that stop sign of seeing anything that's coming from either direction, and that was the concern. So I had thrown out 30 feet as just a number for that. You can see the neighbor's tree, and that blocks the view of the cars that are coming from that, but his fence corner isn't going to add anything to that. That was my concern. But I'm just, it's a real, I understand there's a lot of things and that's why we get called upon to make these decisions, but this is a unique situation, I think, in many respects. Any other
So we take a vote.
comment? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
All right. Who are the nays? Mr. Polino? Mr. LaPerry? Mr. Antini, were you nay?
I was a nay too, Jim.
All right. And Mr. Vanette was a nay. Okay. So the motion fails. 2 votes in favor, 5 opposed, no abstentions, and nobody is absent. Do you want to make a second motion?
No. No, because I made my
Okay.
motion for what I believe in, so now let's hear what somebody else does.
At this point, I think we wanted to ask the applicant, and since we say no public input's allowed, if we ask for it, we can break our own rules. So I think the question that Mr. LaPerry posed was, do you want
Prefer,
a 4-foot fence 40 feet out, or do you want a 6-foot fence closer into the house? I think that's the question. Is that right?
yep,
Can I throw a third option at you?
try it.
Sure.
A 5-foot fence,
No, it's gonna,
same dimensions. but
no, I'd be willing to do.
5 feet in height compared to the 6.
The town code
you guys
allows-
sounded,
The town code allows 3.5 feet, and I'm giving you the extra half a foot, because I don't think it'll be that,
Also, something that you're probably not aware of, but from the cases that we've had dealing with fences, 4-foot is a standard size that's available. 6-foot is a standard size that's available. 5-foot is custom made. Probably about 10 times as expensive for what you're talking about, to go 5 feet as opposed to 4 or 6.
The option of the open white vinyl 6-foot would not be an option.
well, 6 foot, consider 6 foot if the linear footage is brought back. You know, tighter in.
She was talking about like the neighbor has where they have a slat.
Yeah.
Then there's a gap
Right.
between the slats
again, the style of the fence, other than it being a new fence, I mean, whatever they want that way, but, and I'm going with more privacy, so there's no gap in the fence, but.
Okay.
I don't know, is it possible to come back again? I don't know that that's a decision we want to make impulsively
Well-
because we're not trying to be difficult, but we're hesitant to lose that much of our yard.
What,
But we do want the 6 foot for safety.
all right, what I would suggest then is, I would make a motion that, given the fact that we've declined the 6-foot fence 40 feet out, I would make a motion that we approve a variance for a fence, that the applicant, in consultation with the town, can determine whether that fence would be a 4-foot fence that would be 40 feet of the dimensions that we just discussed, coming straight up from the house, I think it's 40 feet, and going across to the side and going back, or a 6-foot fence that would be closer in and what,
You guys make that decision. How's the town how would the town be?
I think we I think Nick's right, I think we table it,
How you would administer that decision and how would?
I think we table it until
well,
next month and let them decide.
that's fine too.
I'll make a motion to table it.
All right, I'll second.
Is that okay with them? I mean, or would you rather a decision now?
I did.
Is it possible for us to kind of talk a little bit about it? You guys go through with the rest of the agenda here that you have to address, and then we can kind of...
We'll defer it till later, sure. Yeah,
Okay.
all right. Moving along, 4 to 72 St. Joseph Street, I believe the applicants are here for that. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does someone wish to make an motion with respect to this application? I'd move then that we grant the variance as requested. I would note that the will not result in any significant change to the character of the neighborhood. It will continue to be a largely open space with scattered structures. The structure that's going to be, that they're requesting is going to be placed in a way that trees will not be sacrificed, and they're going to preserve the open and green character of the surrounding space. The alternative that would not require a variance would require that trees be cut in order for the garage to be on the property. It's not a substantial request because it's still going to be within a few feet of the required setback. There's not going to be any adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions if it's granted. It is a self-created situation in that the applicant has collector cars that they wish to store on their property as opposed to storing off-site. They also have a parcel of property that reasonably accommodates that without unreasonably intruding on the neighbors, and therefore the fact that it's a self-created hardship does not militate against the granting of the variance.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. We're all present. And we'll move on to the application at 41 Garford Road. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does someone wish to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we approve the variance as applied for 41 Garford Road based on the following findings. There is no other way to achieve the benefit of sitting in the backyard without being too hot, except for a temporary structure, which is not something that the applicant wants. It would be a desirable change in the neighborhood because it would increase the property value. It is not substantial. It's in the backyard. No one actually can see it. There will be no adverse impacts to the environment, and the difficulty of the sun is not self-created. So on those grounds, I believe we should grant the variance.
That one?
All right. All those in favor, or any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, and we are all continue to be present. The next application will be with respect to 17 North Terrace. This is also a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make an application or a motion with respect to this application?
I'd make a motion that we deny the front porch based on the neighbor's denial. Typically, I would say front porches are something that we enjoy in the town of Arundecoit and that we like to see in the town of Arundecoit. However, this gentleman and this family have got an elaborate backyard and decks in the back, and it is going to obstruct a view of the neighbor. And I believe her views have been obstructed in the back, and little by little she's being boxed in. I do know that's the only neighbor that spoke up in the applicant, and nobody spoke for it, and she's the one that's directly affected. So based on the fact that it does change the character of the neighborhood, however, again, I do like porches, but it will change the view of the river and the waterfront. It is not an environmental issue. It is a self-created problem because they do want a front porch, but there is an alternative. They do have back decks and back porches.
I will second that, and I'm going to add a little additional finding. They never explained what benefit this would provide other than, they never explained any benefit. They just want it. It's something that they want. So I don't think that the benefit of something that they want outweighs the negative impact on the neighbor.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I think these are all very valid points, and I certainly will support this motion. And I believe very strongly in the opinion of the neighbor. And I think it was pretty good, pretty gutsy of her to come here tonight and make that point. Even when I challenged her a little bit, she stood her ground, and I have a lot of respect for that. So, good motion, and I think that's the best decision.
Well, I would disagree. I would say that the benefit of a front porch is not just to the owner. I believe the benefit of a front porch benefits the entire neighborhood. I think porches, as opposed to rear decks, contribute to a sense of neighborliness. I don't believe that the view is restricted by an open porch to the extent that the neighbor was claiming that it would. And when you buy a property, you have no guarantee that the view that you have is going to be preserved. The way you guarantee that the view that you have is preserved is to buy everything that's in sight. And then you can guarantee that your view doesn't change. But, as Mr. Lamberts pointed out, his neighbor put in a large maple tree that impacted his views. That's the kind of thing that happens as people develop and improve their property. And so I think that the fact that the one neighbor is concerned about the impact that it might have on her view, while it's a valid concern, I don't think it warrants denying the request for the porch.
If there were other neighbors that had come forward and said, great idea, you might have had something to weigh, but there was only one person that came, and it was the one directly affected.
Well,
And again, like Russ says, there's a lot of weight there.
And I just want to clarify that it's my understanding that, so what the board's saying here is if you were to deny this motion, it wouldn't, or deny this application, it wouldn't be because a neighbor came forward in opposition and there were no neighbors on the other side, because that wouldn't be a proper basis, but it's because of the information that neighbor presented to the board that you think reflect that the character of the neighborhood would be affected, or that there would be a detrimental effect on the environment because of the porch, not just because there was a neighbor opposition.
I think that's exactly right,
Okay.
which got to my point. The benefit, The only stated benefit was the benefit to the applicant. No one from the neighborhood came and said, this would be good, this is something that we want. No one said anything like that. All I heard was two people saying they wanted it and someone else saying, I don't know. There was no evidence that this is going to create any good, other than our knowledge that, porches are good sometimes in certain circumstances, but I didn't hear anything that said this is a benefit.
Right, so the motion should reflect that accordingly, that not the neighbor opposition, but the basis, or the facts that neighbor brought to light
Well,
during her testimony.
I think the character of the neighborhood has changed, will change.
I'd agree that it might change the character. I think the change would be for the positive, not the negative as the neighbor and you do. And Russ. Any other comment or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm opposed. Anyone else? All right, motion carries. 6 votes in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions. We all continue to be present. The next item will be the application with respect to 63 Keating Drive. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I'll make a motion that we approve this application. Based on the following findings, there will be no change to the neighborhood character. There are decks all around this home. The alternative would be a 9.5-foot deck. I don't think that's a very substantial variance for the 5.5 feet. I see no physical or environmental concerns. And while this is self-created, just based on the homeowner's desires, I don't think that precludes the variance.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. We all continue to be present. So, we've now completed everything that we had on our agenda, other than whether or not we were going to go back and revisit the Lakeshore Boulevard, Rock Beach Road. Mr. Robinson, did you want us to table to let you think about the alternative that the board seems to be agreeable to? Or do you want us to proceed with something specific tonight? Okay. I think Mr. Polino had made a motion to table earlier. I would second that. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion to table carries, 7 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, and we all continue to be present. I believe that concludes our business for this evening.